Thanks very much, everybody. Welcome to this webinar. I find that time management and productivity are some of the biggest issues that I face when working with clients. It's interesting, we've had over 100 people register for this webinar. I think that's indicative, only gave people a week's notice, so thank you for coming along, but it's indicative of, I guess, some of the issues that people see. Now, I don't know about you, but I've been to a number of time management seminars. I've read countless books on the subjects. I invested in a daytimer diary system and used it for quite a number of years. I'm not sure where that company is now with all the electronic stuff. And I'm actually not a bad time manager. Recently, though, I was requested to speak at a conference on this topic, and the topic was how could I find an extra 8 hours in every week? So I decided, rather than talk about the theory of time management and how we might do this a bit better, that I would take up the challenge and I'd actually do it myself. And the good news is I've been successful. So this is my story. I'm not going to talk about the standard time management stuff that you will find in books and different things. A little bit of it, but not very much of it. We're going to talk about some other stuff. Now, for those of you who don't know me, I'm a business advisor and coach. I spent the last 28 years. I work primarily with family and privately owned businesses and industry organisations. Three key areas that I focus on in working with those groups are around strategy. So it's about developing and implementing strategic plans across an organisation. I then sort of found that in order to implement the plans, that people needed coaching and support. So I coach CEOs, managers, supervisors in different teams. And also we worked out that in order to get effective strategy implementation, that our teams needed to have a common language and toolkit for problem solving, planning, management, and developing strategy. And so we do training and leadership development of business leaders in order to give them those tools and processes. So that's me in a nutshell. More information on the website if you'd like some more on that. So let's talk about productivity. It's a great quote here from Mike Abel. If you can't do your job in a 10-hour day during the week, then you're either overworked or incompetent. And put your hand up if you're feeling incompetent or overworked. And I certainly was, and we'll discuss that in a little bit of a minute. Now, I think Mike might be a bit hard there, but I think the sentiment is right. Now, I guess my experience is that highly productive people, though, are those who are capable of taking control and being disciplined and organized in their approach. And unfortunately, this might mean that you might have to push back or say no at different times. So I just start out with that because I think that's going to be a bit of a theme. You're going to have to take control. So let's talk about a simple model for understanding time management. Now, this is what I call my time management pyramid. It's a modified version of the business improvement model that we use in Mindshop, but the analogy holds for time management. It also fits fairly nicely with the Golden Circle model that Simon Sinek of TED Talk fame, it's a great video that he talks about, and that's about why, what, and how. So my experience is that if you start at the bottom, you've got to have your belief systems right. So why is time management not working for you, or why is time management an issue for you? Are you in the right frame of mind? What are you doing? So it's important that you understand why you're not a good time manager or why you need to be a better time manager, because many of us have done all the courses, all the reading, have got all the tools, and still lousy at managing time. So one of the things we've got to understand is why. The second thing we need to get our head around then is what are we doing with our time? And that's about waste for me. So it's about wasted time and energy. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. And then lastly, how are you going about it? Because my experience is that most people aren't using many of the tools at their disposal and are certainly not doing them well. So let's discuss each of the areas that we're going to talk about, because my solution actually picked from different bits of these as we went through, and the time management stuff has been excellent. So let's talk about it. The first one is beliefs, about why, and the first part of beliefs for me is about attitude, and that's about your work ethic. Now, in this one, men are inherently way worse at this than women, but they're not the sole culprits. There is a big competitive element in workplaces about being seen to be working hard. Now, we equate that to long. Okay, so if you work smarter and get out of there earlier, people don't actually give you credit for that. They give you credit for staying at the office longer. So there's a cultural element that says if you're a hard worker, then you work long hours as well. I think it's important. And it's like a badge of honor for some people. I work 80 hours a week or 90 hours a week or whatever. And I think part of that is inbuilt into us. And so we've got to start to get our head around that attitude. And you've got to change your attitude and say, no, I can do this differently. The second key element to think about in this area of beliefs, or the why part for me, is around health and diet. This is absolutely critical. A good diet gives you a lot more energy. Exercise gives you a lot more energy, better sleep patterns, less stress, all that sort of stuff. Diet, particularly less processed foods, less stimulants, more water, give you a lot more energy in your day, and makes you just more productive. So productivity is about having a right mental state, about eating right and exercising, doing all those things. And the last one is probably something that I didn't really believe in for quite a long time, is sleep. Now, the research says you need at least 8 hours sleep per night, and I'm actually going to send you a paper that's got some great links into this. Now, 8 hours of sleep is linked to productivity. It's also linked to a whole range of health and behavioural issues, and it's really important that we get a lot more sleep. Now, I used to survive on 4 to 6 hours sleep per night. I regularly stayed awake till 2 o'clock every morning, got up again at 7. Sometimes it was 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock before I went to bed. Now, the thing is, we can train ourselves to operate at this level, but we're operating at a suboptimal performance. So it's a bit like, you can train yourself to do anything, but unless you're operating at your top performance, then it's below that. Now, without 8 hours sleep a night, we're just operating at suboptimal performance. So 8 hours sleep is really important. I've changed my sleep patterns dramatically. It's had a huge impact on my productivity, and all sorts of things. So they're the first things. So you might just go to the workbook and have a quick look in there and say, what are the 3 key areas that you need to focus on in when improving your beliefs? And they are attitude, health, and sleep. All right. I want you to think then about what is one immediate action step that you can take now to address one of those issues for you. And it might be need to give yourself a good hard talk. You might need to do some affirmations around your attitude. You might need to get to the gym more. You might need to change your diet, less coffee, more water, better snacks, or you might be simply you need to actually change your sleep patterns. Okay, so that's phase 1. Phase 2 is waste, and really it's about what are you doing with your time. Thing is, most of us don't know what we do with our time and how we spend it, particularly at work. And it's really interesting. Even people who keep detailed timesheets of their work, they really doesn't tell them what they do with their time. It just tells them where they roughly allocated what they were doing. And my experience is in most businesses that most people tell fibs on their timesheet about what they did anyhow. So the research shows that most people overestimate the amount of work that they actually do. Not the time they spend at work, they overestimate the amount of time they spent working while they're at work. So I thought I'd put that to the test, and I did a time management audit. So this is a simple tool. This is a model one here, but this is a simple tool that you can use to do your time, to work out what the hell you do with your time. And really all you do is map out some of the typical areas that you might are important to you, and actually track your time. Now, I tracked my time over, I kept a log of my time, and I tracked it over a 5-week period. But I did that because very few of my weeks are consistent. But for those of you with more consistent weeks, you might find that you can get away with only tracking your time for 1 or 2 weeks to give you a good idea of what your pattern was. This is my pattern. So on average, over the 5 weeks, I was working 61 hours a week, 61.4 hours a week. But that didn't include travel, which was at least 5 hours per week. Part of that is because I live in Bundaberg, in beautiful Bundaberg in the Queensland coast. I live on the beach here, and that obviously to service some of my clients, I need to travel, and that's just a price I pay to live here. Is the way I look at it. Excuse me for that. And the I guess the other thing to think about is that it also included work time I spent on weekends, and also it included 3 days of personal time that I took. Now the interesting thing is my productivity was pretty low, so 45% of the time was actually me working on client related work, which is fairly low really if you think about it. And some of the big things that I really needed to address were I needed to reduce the amount of time I was wasting on emails, web, and social media. So I was watching lots of TED videos and doing all that sort of good stuff. Most of it not that productive if I really thought about it. I need to reduce the amount of time I spent managing my team. So I have a small virtual team in the Philippines. And my next webinar is actually talking about how we might manage those a bit better. But reduce the amount of time we spend. And the other thing then is I need to increase the amount of time I spent for strategy, marketing, sales, and training. So I needed to spend more time on the strategic elements of my business. Overall, though, I wanted to reduce the amount of time I work. So I wanted to reduce the hour of time I work. I wanted to reduce that back to 50 hours a week, which I've done. So I now work pretty closely to 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. every day. I rarely work on weekends anymore, and I rarely work late into the night like I used to. And I'm often in bed by 10 o'clock now, which is quite scary for me. But my body has really become adapted to it, and it's quite an interesting thing. So, how did I do this? What changes did I make? So, I don't know about you, I've tried various blocking out mornings and afternoon for activities, all that sort of stuff. Let's block out 2 hours here and 4 hours there, and I'll block out every Friday to do this and that. But I found that they just didn't work because I kept bumping them for I guess something important. I kept bumping important things for something that was urgent, and so a lot of things that I was doing around strategy and planning stuff got bumped. So what I did was said, righto, that's not going to work for me. So I'm going to set up a framework, a daily roster. So basically I said I'm going to work my 10 hours a day. I'm going to take 2 hours of that and not allocate it to anything at all if I can. So it gives me 8 hours to allocate. The 3 or 4 things I really needed to do in my business are I need to do work with clients. I need to do marketing and sales. It's a consulting business. I need to keep growing my client base. I need to do strategy and development work for my business and also for myself. And I also need to spend a bit of time working with my team and helping them to do the stuff that I need them to do. So the important thing is for you to map out what are the 3 or 4, I'll give you 5 if you really want to, really important things that you need to do in your day. Now, what I found is that by focusing on ticking off each of these elements every day. So I don't necessarily spend 2 hours of every day on marketing and sales, but what I'm finding is that I'm spending at least part of every day doing something on marketing and sales, something on strategy and development, something on my team, and something with clients. So I'm ticking off something every day, no matter how busy I am. And it's really interesting to see just how productive that's made me. The results have been quite amazing. I've probably had, since I've been doing this, the busiest 3 months of my business life. I would think in the last 10 years, certainly I've been busier in the last 3 months than I have been with new work, new clients, everything else. And at the same time, doing a lot of delivery of work, I've also managed to keep up my sales and marketing effort and keep working on building and growing my business. So I guess the thing I'd like you to think about now, I want you to take 2 minutes. So this needs to be a quick exercise and say, what are the top 3 or 4 things that you must focus on in your business? And that's the second exercise there in the workbook. So just take a minute to do that. So what are the 3 or 4 things that you need to focus on? I want you to be strategic about these things. Yeah. I don't want you getting lost in the detail of if you've got more than five things, you're getting lost in the detail. So what are the big rocks, the big chunks that you need to focus on? Just take your time. You've got a whole 30 seconds left, and it should be stuff that comes quickly to you anyhow. If you're good at what you do, you can focus on what are the 3 or 4 big chunks that I need to focus on. All right, remember to be really strategic in that. So we'll take another 10 seconds. Just map those out. Okay, so you've decided on your top 3 or 4 things. The challenge then is, what do you do with all the other stuff on your list? So what I've developed here is what I call my stop doing matrix. So I said there are 4 options. So if I've got all these other things that I need to do, there are 4 things that I need to do. I need to stop doing them. So my coach, Chris Mason, every year asks me, what are you going to stop doing, right? So if you want to free up 20% of your time, what are the things you're going to stop doing? So I thought about that and said, righto, what are the things I'm going to stop doing? So you need to think about, what can you stop? Just outright stop, and it won't make any difference. What are you going to delegate to somebody else? So that's somebody within your organization. What else can you delegate? So you might just have some tasks you can delegate to other people. What can you outsource to somebody external to your organization? Is there an opportunity for you to do that? Then you might outsource it. So I've outsourced bookkeeping and a whole other things in my business. And then the 4th bit is, what are you going to re-engineer? So if you can't do anything with those other 3 things, stop, delegate, outsource, can you re-engineer the process so it takes 10% of the time? So just, think about those 4 things: stop, delegate, outsource, re-engineer. Now, on same page 2, there's some areas there. So after each one there's a blank space. I'd like you to write one action that you might do to think something you might be able to stop, one you might be able to delegate, one you might be able to outsource, one you might be able to re-engineer. Okay, so just think about that for just a second. Yep. Mohammed, I don't think I will be able to share the list of participants of the webinar. There's some privacy issues there, so I won't be circulating a list. All right, so while you're thinking about that, I guess this is not all just me making it up. So some research that published in Harvard Business Review found that with middle managers, that they could actually help them save 8 hours a week, the magic figure number that I came up with, by posing this question. Looking forward in your diary or your work plan, and for each item, if you ask yourself, do I really need to do this? So what they found was people looking forward would say, no, I don't really need to do that. And then they would go through a process similar, I assume, to the stop doing matrix. But they found that managers that did that went through that, actually saved themselves that 8 hours a week. All right. So I hope you've listed one item each there against what's something you're going to stop, what's something you're going to delegate, what's something going to be outsourced. You may not be able to do either of those depending on your situation. And what's one thing you might be able to re-engineer. And then there's a point there for action 1. I'd really like you to think about, what's the primary action I need to take? Is there one big action that I really need to focus on? And do that. I'll give you a couple of seconds just to think that through. All right, I'll push on because we're just slightly behind schedule, so I'll carry on. So one of the important things here then is to focus on is getting the structure right, and that's the 3rd phase that we talked about. So that's that structural element. And for me, getting the structure right is all about taking control. And so effective time management is about taking control. Yeah, it's about you taking control of your environment and the activities that you do. So that fits into the blank in the workbook again. Effective time management is about taking control. Now that requires discipline, organization, and the use of available tools. So we've talked about getting your mental attitude right. We've talked about taking control of I guess how you go about managing your time. So the what you're going to do, and the last one then I want to talk about is how you go about doing that, and some of the productivity tools that I've used. Now, there's a great model here, and this is out of Stephen Covey's book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective Characters. We unfortunately lost Mr. Covey last year, and he's a fantastic author. It's one of the best books I think I've ever read. I have to say it's probably the best $20 I've ever spent. And part of it is this matrix. And I'll quickly explain the matrix to you. Say that there are things that are urgent or not urgent. There are other tasks that are important or not important. So we can rate them in terms of whether they're urgent or important and score them. So something that fits into quadrant 1 there is a task that is urgent and important. So they are typically things that are crises, pressing problems, deadlines, all those bushfires we run around putting out in our businesses and our jobs. Quadrant 2 activities are important activities, but they're not urgent activities. That's building relationships, planning, strategy, training, fitness, family, self, all that sort of stuff. And they're the things we regularly bump for quadrant 1 activities. Okay. Quadrant 3 activities are urgent activities that are not important. And they're phone calls, some mail, pressing matters, other things. There are things that don't necessarily add value to you. They are often things that are imposed upon you by other people, and unless we address them, we don't get them. Quadrant 4 activities are not urgent and not important activities. So for me, they can be trivia, time mails, surfing the internet, all that sort of stuff. So the important thing is use this as a tool to prioritize your activities. So you can actually sit down and create a list. And if you've got a column beside that list, there's 2 columns, one urgent, one important. You can run down and put a tick in the urgent, put a tick in the important, and go through and find out which ones of these things are most important for you. So, and my experience is that the more time you spend in quadrant 2, the less time you will spend in quadrant 1. So the more time you spend doing planning and training and all those sorts of things and getting your strategy right, the less time you spend putting out deadlines and bushfires and all that sort of stuff and rushing around. Okay, it's really important that you then make sure that the tasks that you're prioritizing are the ones that fit with your top 3 activities. So they fit with the important things that you pulled out of the last one when we talked about, what are you actually doing with your time. So that's pretty nice. The name of that book again was The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. So 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, John. So use that tool. It's a great tool. I think there's actually some videos on the website on how to use that. If not, I'll make sure I post one for you. So you can go into the video section of either SBD or the Next Generation program. In terms of tools for managing tasks and stuff, I found a couple of great tools. This one here is called kanbanflow.com, and another one is called Trello.com. And you can write those into great task management tools. So Trello is spelled Trello.com. Both of them use this Kanban layout, which is from lean manufacturing, and it creates a visual way of managing tasks and activities and dragging things around. Now, the great thing, I guess, about some of these task management tools, and particularly the Kanban Flow, is it comes with this Pomodoro timer. So not only are they good time management tools, I found that this timer has probably been the key to helping me improve some of my time management issues. What it does is you set the timer, you select the task and set the timer for 25 minutes, and it will count down for you. When you get to 25 minutes, it sends you a little beep, and then you get a 5-minute rest. Yeah, and I think after every 4, it gives you a 15-minute rest. So what it focuses you on is your activity at the time. Now it's really interesting. I find that knowing that the timer is there clicking away really keeps me focused on the activities I need to do. It also has a very subtle thing in that when I'm working away and my mind drifts and I think, I really have to send that email to somebody or I have to do something else. When I do that, I actually look at it and go, I can do that in another 12 minutes or whatever the timer happens to be. So, I can actually do that in 12 minutes, and I put it off until I get to that 5-minute point. Now, sometimes my 5 minute takes me 5 or 10 minutes to get there because, to finish, because I'll go and do the things I said I was going to do. I'll make a phone call or I'll do something else. And so I'm finding I'm being really quite productive. Now, you don't have to use the Pomodoro timer. You can use your iPhone, your iPad. There's a range of these things. I'm actually just thinking of setting one up on my website for you, which you can use for free anyhow. So I might even set that up and send you a link to it, and then you can have your own timer on the website. So really important that you get a good task management tool. And I find Kanban and Flow, or I find Trello slightly better. They allow you to collaborate with others. They're visual tools. They're 100% online. You can use them on any device, smartphone, iPad, all that sort of stuff. They're free, or even their premium versions are very moderately priced, and you can use them to collaborate with other team members. All right, I'll push on here because we're getting close. So, email. This is just a snapshot from my email, and I've just blanked out some of the bits to protect the innocent. I guess a couple of things here. Email is a massive time waster, and the problem is we have no discipline about it. So people check their email about 10 times an hour, do all sorts of things. It's a major disruption to being productive. My rules, and you can write these in on page 2 under 4 tips for reducing time waste on email. The first one is don't check it first thing in the morning. Don't let email dominate your day. Set up your plan for what you want to do in the day. Make sure you don't over allocate your time. There's plenty of good books that talk to you about allocating your time. Then check your emails. Once you've got your plan, you've got some things underway, then check it. You might have to modify your plan slightly, but don't start the day by spending a half hour or an hour checking your emails first up. Second thing is set up rules in Outlook, Apple Mail, Mozilla, whatever you do. Most of those programs will allow you to set up rules. Now, a rule basically says if an email comes in from a certain email address or has something in the subject line, or you can set up on a range of criteria you can look at, it will move it to a separate inbox. And what I've got here under mine, I've got a number of inbox set up under my clients, and you can see there that where there are unread emails, a little icon appears with a badge against it, which is a number. So there are 2 unread emails there. Okay, so those things are automatically sorted. It actually automatically sorts all the newsletters and all the other rubbish that comes in as well for me. And you've got to take a little bit of time to set those rules up and keep adding to them. But it's amazing once you do. So what I've ended up with is then a green area, which was the high priority area. So I've mapped that out there. So it's all my clients and high priority contacts. And then the red area is all the stuff that doesn't matter. So, newsletters, jokes, books from Twitter, all sorts of other things that I don't really need that aren't high priority for me. So what happens is I check the green stuff 3 times per day, but I check the red stuff maybe once a day, every day or so. I don't necessarily check it all the time. What this does is it means you're not searching through your inbox for countless emails, spending countless hours searching through 100 emails you've got in the day to try and find that 1 or 2 emails from important clients and losing them or skipping over them. My other rule is that you need to turn off all your notifications. So if you've got a little thing that bings and makes noises in the background and does stuff, turn it off, because it's just a distraction and it will drag you off to keep checking your email. So what's one immediate action that you can take? Write that on the bottom of page 2. So what's one thing you're going to do to take control of your email? And it might be setting up rules. It might be just making sure you only check it a few times a day rather than every 10 minutes. The thing is, I find that if people are actually sending you urgent emails that you need to respond to quickly, they're using the wrong media to contact you, and you need to get in touch with them and fill them in on that, because that assumes you are sitting by the phone, sitting by your computer waiting for an email when most of us are out and about doing stuff and other things. So it's an inappropriate mechanism for doing that. My basic rule is there's a chain of emails with more than about 2 emails in the chain, I'll pick up the phone and finish things off. Okay, I'm going to push on. I'm sorry I'm running a little bit late. Interruptions, again, this is all about taking control. Major interruptions I find are impromptu meetings. So this is when somebody follows you back into your office or whatever and wants a quick meeting with you. Take control here. State whether it suits you to talk or not. If it's not, then propose another time when you might have that conversation with somebody. And then if you are able to have that meeting, state how long you have available. So if you've got 5 minutes, state 5 minutes or 10 minutes. Don't just start the meeting. All right. The second thing, other big interruption, time waster, is having a disorganized office with filing everywhere. So you need to get organized. There's a shot of my office for you, and I'm in the peak of it. If I took a photo of it now, you'd be amazed. So it's all clear and tidy. Surfing the web, don't get caught up in surfing the web and going and chasing stuff and following things down. It's too easy to get distracted, and the next minute you've wasted a half an hour on things. The fourth big time waster is phone calls. Okay, make sure that you turn off your phone when you need to. Okay, so take control, turn off the phone, divert it to message bank or whatever for short periods of time, so you've got the focus to get on and do things. It's just fantastic. We haven't had a chance to talk about meetings, and we might run another webinar on how to run productive meetings, because the statistics are quite alarming into how much time managers and people in organisations are spending in meetings that are quite unproductive, and taking up a lot of time, energy, and money for the organisation. Let's talk about some of the productivity tools that I use. Here's a quick snapshot of them. First thing is, I think in terms of all the tools, make sure that wherever you can, that they are integrated. Where possible, have tools that you can use across your desktop, your iPad, your smartphone, whatever you've got. Make sure you've got integrated tools and systems. Yeah, hopefully they will all talk to another. If you move down to the bottom left-hand side there, two programs I use to make sure I've got data and information with me wherever I go. I use Documents to Go, which makes sure I've got copies of files and documents on my iPad. I use that to import and export stuff from my iPad. And then Dropbox is a cloud-based storage system that I can access from any device, any computer, in fact, to get access to my files. Really important that you have access to those. Massive time waster turning up and not having the information that you want at your fingertips. Bottom little cluster there, I've got video conferencing. So this is a program, we run this on GoToMeeting. I find video conferencing, I'm doing more and more video conferencing with clients. I also coach about 70 people around the world on how to be a business coach. We do all of that via video conferencing. And I use the tools I use a GoToMeeting, I use Skype, and I use another program called VC, and that's spelled VSEE, which is a video conferencing solution. I like it because it uses lower bandwidth, and it allows you to screen share much easier than the others. So that's good. But you might want to use Google Hangouts. It depends what technology you and your company use and what you're familiar with. Another great tool for managing projects is to use a tool like Basecamp, or there are a number of products in the Zoho suite. So Zoho Projects is also pretty good. I use the Zoho CRM. Zoho also have a whole range of tools that allow for collaboration and those sort of things with your team. So think about tools that you can use to manage tasks and projects and those sorts of things. Don't forget Trello or Kanban Flow as well. The little pen there on the right hand side is an electronic pen called a LiveScribe pen. I find it's just fantastic. So it's an electronic pen that you write on a notebook with, and then it transfers your notes directly to your computer. Now it's if you get a Wi-Fi pen, it's fully integrated into Evernote. For those of you who are not using Evernote, it is a brilliant notebook tool that allows you to store information on multiple devices from multiple sources on your computer. Well worth experimenting with, saves a lot of time and energy. It's a great tool. I use the two icons in the middle, the blue one and the brown pen below it, GoodNotes and Penultimate. These are just tools that allow me to write on my iPad with a stylus. So I use a special stylus that allows me to write on my iPad, just like writing with a pen, and allows me to take notes on my iPad and do all the things that you can do with your iPad. So use the technology to give you leverage. The last tool there is an app called TripIt. It's for those of you who travel, it is brilliant. It builds an automatic itinerary of your travel. It collates from your email inbox all your confirmations of hire cars, airfares, accommodation, all that sort of stuff. and puts it into one handy place and monitors your travel for you. Fantastic app. It's more of a service than an app. I've got the premium service, but the free service is absolutely brilliant. Okay, so there are some places there to write some notes on some of that on page 3 of the workbook. Think about one step that you might take and to use some of these productivity tools. What's one tool you're going to investigate how you might be able to use it? All right, just about done. What are 3 actions that you can take away from today that can save yourself 8 hours in the next week? I think that's the big question. So think back what we've talked about. We've talked about a range of things. So I'm going to summarize for you. We've talked about getting your belief systems right. So why is time management an issue for you? Do you have the right frame of mind? We talked about, your attitude. We talked about your diet and your health, and we talked about getting enough sleep. What's something there that you might do? We talked about waste. We talked about what are you doing with your time, and there I talked about the importance of actually defining the 3 or 4 or 5 things, the big chunks of things that you need to do in your day, and making sure you set up a schedule that allows you to tick off some of those things in every day. It's almost like a mental checklist that you work through. In collaboration with that, you've got to use the stop doing matrix. So use it as a filter to get rid of tasks that you don't want to do anymore, and to go through your activities and tasks and work out how you might be able to do something else with them. And lastly, we talked about structure. We talked about all the tools at your disposal. We talked about Kanban, Flow, and Trello, and Dropbox, and Documents to Go. Video conferencing as a way of eliminating travel and reducing the level of travel that you do, and improving your telephone conversation with people. Something I didn't mention, the quality of your conversation is so much better when you can eyeball somebody, even across video conferencing. Think about Basecamp and Zoho as tools to improve your productivity and give you more leverage around your time. The LifeScribe Smart Pen is brilliant because it takes my hand-scrawled notes and gives me an electronic version which I can take with me wherever I go. I can pass them on to other people, my PA for typing up, all that sort of stuff. Evernote, a great tool for storing documents. GoodNotes and Penultimate, great tools for allowing you to use your iPad and write directly on your iPad. And lastly, TripIt. So again, what are the 3 or 4 things, or let's say 3 actions that you're going to focus on that are going to help you to save that 8 hours in every week? For me, they were sleep, the matrix, getting my daily schedule right, and then making sure I use tools, particularly Trello was a tool that's really, really worked for me. Those things really, really focused on it. So, the matrix, the stop doing matrix, and then setting up the daily schedule was probably the key elements of allowed me to save more than 8 hours in every week. And lastly, I just want to touch on a point here that with every plan, we need to think about 3 things. So if you're going to make some changes, you need to have 3 elements. You need to have a high level of dissatisfaction, and that's about motivation. So if you're dissatisfied with the status quo, you'll be keen to move on and do something else. So you want to have a high level of dissatisfaction or motivation to change. Without motivation to change, you will not make any change. So if you're fat and happy and living in the sun on the beach at Bundaberg like I am, you're not going to be motivated to move anywhere else. The second thing you've got to have is a vision, a clear vision for what you want to achieve at the end of the process. So if you're going to improve your productivity and your change management, set yourself a vision for what you're going to do with that extra time and be clear about it. And the third thing you've got to have is a plan. You need to have a clear, coherent plan for what you're going to do to make the change. Put all those elements together and you've got some change potential, and the chances of you actually doing something about improving your productivity are really got to go. All right, we'll get to some questions in a minute. Our next webinar, the next webinar, which is on in a fortnight's time, is on how to make the best use of virtual assistants, the why, how, and what of improving your productivity with a virtual assistant. So there I'm going to talk about why you might be able to use a virtual assistant, learn how to find one, and some tips and tricks for maximizing your productivity using those. Again, it's a free webinar. There'll be a link in the follow-up information that comes out to you. and we'll go from there. So that's all from me. We've got time for questions if you like. I know you've got a couple here. Thank you very much. Thank you for your indulgence. Apologies for going over time. And I hope you have a great week. And hopefully I'll see you at a future webinar in the future. Thanks very much, everybody. Good night.